Oh, it was definitely a record number, and it was F's because I couldn't think of anything lower than that.
Well, you had a couple D's in the mix there, too, but let's start at the bottom. Let's start at the stink here with the F's. Number one, you gave some units, you gave some coaches, but some of the individual players who got an F. One of them was Mark Sanchez. With a 3 interceptions, just a wretched day. At one point, he had 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. He looked like he was on his way to having a nice day. But the ugly head reared itself back in for Sanchez, and obviously he ended up not playing very well. So why Mark Sanchez the F other than the 3 interceptions?
Yeah, I mean, the 3 interceptions are a big part of it, but it's also the timing of when he makes his mistakes. I just cannot stand. At the end of the half there, they were on the edge, yes, I get it, of field goal range, but at least give Sturgis the chance to try if they're not going to get a touchdown there, which it was 3rd down, and he threw an interception, so clearly there's no field goal try. Just getting 3 in the locker room would have been better than what happened. And there's that. There's also the argument with Sproles. Here's a guy who's a clear veteran. He knows what he's doing more than I think Sanchez knows what he's doing. And I just don't understand what the argument was about there, that even Sanchez would go up to and continue that with Sproles. At that point, he should just put his head down and just figure we can have a conversation behind closed doors at some point. But just showing up a veteran like that, like Sanchez was doing at that point, I didn't agree with that either. I just think there's a lot of things here that Sanchez needs to do besides just play on the field. Off the field, this team desperately needs a leader, desperately needs somebody on offense to step up. This was his opportunity, and he stunk at it.
Yeah, had some bad body language yesterday. You could see it looked like that he was very frustrated. And as the quarterback, that's something. And look, I think Sanchez played pretty poorly in the second half of that game. I thought the first drive of the game, Scott, I thought he came out and really engineered the offense well. I actually liked the game plan early. They got the ball to Aguilar a couple times early. They ran the ball well. You saw Sanchez keep it and run. What happened to that, play calling, that scheme early in that first drive where they went right down the field and they looked pretty good?
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that, too. I thought the play calling was good on that first drive. Like you said, hitting Aguilar and really showing that you're going to need to defend the whole field at that point, which opens up things across the middle. That's what it did. That's why Huff was able to score. I thought Sanchez on that drive, you're right, he did a really good job of moving around in the pocket. He even ran, I think, on that first drive. And I thought that really helped loosen up the Tampa Bay defense. But whatever was going on there, I don't know why, but they changed everything, didn't go back to any of that stuff that worked. And I think at the same point, Sanchez didn't look the same after that either. And I thought Sanchez, like you said, did a really good job of engineering that drive, of moving the ball down the field. But then after that, he wasn't the same. The team wasn't the same, and it all went downhill from there, obviously.
All right, F's for defensive back, linebackers, defensive line, and Billy Davis. Virtually the entire defense you gave an F yesterday, and I think they played absolutely wretched. I would say this, and I don't disagree with the fact that they all got Fs and deserved them. I thought they played a gutless game yesterday on defense. But I'll say this, for Kelly to point the finger and call the defense out, look, the defense is not going to play a all-pro game week in and week out. They are about the only reason this team has some sort of relevancy left in this season, yet the offense has been inept for 10 weeks. And for him to call out the defense the way he did, I think Chip Kelly deserves an F- the way he handled yesterday. But how about the defense? Let's start with that. How bad? You were there yesterday. How bad was the defense?
It was just amazing, some of the holes. I mean, Mike, you and I could have run for close to 200 yards at times in that game behind that offensive line against the way they manhandled the defense. I just thought what makes this run defense so good and the front seven so good for the Eagles is that there's always a guy who disrupts the play and a guy who comes in and finishes off the runner. Yesterday, it just seemed like there was a guy who was in his spot who would make the play to kind of slow down Martin, maybe not wrap him up, but there wasn't that other guy to come in and finish him off. For whatever reason, those guys were late arriving, and by the time they got there, Martin had his strength and his weight and his center of gravity behind him again, and he was off and running at that point, breaking another tackle, and they were just slow in reacting, and that's where I put it on the players. It just seemed like they lost their individual battles. as far as Billy Davis goes, I just could not understand why, when Jameis Winston was showing the ability to stand in the pocket, to look off his reads and his progressions, when you gave him time, he was making perfect throws. Why do you not try to change something there? And they come out of the locker room at halftime, and they continue doing what they failed to do well in the first half. There were no adjustments made. There were no blitzes put on to try to just get to Winston, make him move around, make him uncomfortable. None of that happened. And that's why, in my opinion, I thought they were still in it going into the third quarter, and it got quickly out of hand with that 10-minute drive that just really blew the doors off the Eagles, in my opinion.
Scott, you watch that defense. Do you get the sense that the defense is just worn down and that we should expect more of this? Was it just a one game where, hey, every season, not every unit's going to have it on every single week, they just had a bad game? Or is this the beginning of this unit getting worn down like we've seen the last couple of years?
It's an interesting point. I hadn't really considered that side of it, but I think that's an interesting point as to maybe why some of those tackles weren't made at times on Martin, and he was able to fight his way out of them. They might just be getting worn down. And you look at guys who, is Kiko Alonso really healthy at this point? And he's playing a lot of snaps out there right now. How is D'Amico Ryans doing coming back again? Michael Kendricks looks to be doing all right again, but I think, to a certain extent, these guys could be worn down. And if that is the case, then I'm scared for sure about what we're going to see on a short week here Thursday.
Scott Grayson's with us. You were there live yesterday. Before we go to Chip Kelly, because he got an F as well, deservingly so, what was that locker room like yesterday?
Well, that's what I was really interested to see afterwards. A lot of frustration, definitely a lot of frustration. Guys looking to get out of that locker room as fast as they could. I mean, they were out of the showers, in their lockers, trying to get dressed and gone before I think in some cases before they had to worry about dealing with the media. But to a certain extent, I mean, what I heard was ownership from the defensive players, owning that bad performance, not trying to blame somebody else. To me, that was interesting. I was really looking to see if there was going to be any finger pointing, and there wasn't, at least not verbally from guys, not really blatantly if there was much of it at all. And I think to a certain extent, it's because the only reason is because they realize that they can still win this division, as crazy as that is. But they know, and I think what I'm gaining from them, or what I got from the locker room yesterday, is that finally there might be a sense of urgency as there's less and less games on the schedule ahead of them. Therefore, a lot of less and less opportunities to try to get this thing turned around. So to me, this game Thursday is huge in that regard, to see if they come out of here like a cornered animal or if they just whimper away into the sunset.
Well, Scott, you spoke with guys like Malcolm Jenkins, Brandon Graham, Connor Barwin. What you take from them? Billy Davis also, but the players, Jenkins, Graham, and Barwin, there are three guys there that you talked to after the game. Because we did get some reports, anonymous player calling Murray out.
I saw that.
You had Jenkins. Were you part of the Jenkins scrum when he talked basically, hey, that's on the offense. He wears the hat on that side of the ball. Are you getting the sense that there's a divide between offense and defense? Were you there for that part of Jenkins?
Yeah, I was there for that, but I didn't take anything as far as finger-pointing-esque away from what Jenkins said there. I think that somebody asked him a question. I forget what the question was exactly, but related to, things on the offensive side, and he just said, that's not my side of the ball. I'm not worried about that side. We got to fix what's going on over here. And so I didn't get the sense that Jenkins was pointing the fingers at the offense in any way, and none of those defensive guys really were, nor if any of them would have. That would really be alarming because – that game got out of hand because of the way the defense played, not because the offense failed to do its job, especially early in the game. So I didn't sense that. But from talking to those three players, Brandon Graham was very upset with himself for the offsides penalty that extended one drive. They all were extremely frustrated and embarrassed, in their words, by the 12-man on the field penalty that they got. All that kind of stuff that can't happen. That can't happen in week 1 when you're coming out of preseason. Definitely can't happen in week 10. Guys need to know where they need to be, and that's the thing that I think these guys are scratching their head about, was how were we that out of it that we weren't able to even realize we had 12 men on the field.
All right.
And Connor Barwin to me seemed the most frustrated, though, Mike, out of all the three of them. Jenkins was frustrated. Barwin seemed the most hurt by their performance.
I'll say this, as much as I think Barwin gives full effort, I'm not questioning that. You might have to question that extension he got, though. He seems like all year long, Scott, he's just one step short constantly of getting to that quarterback.
Yes, I'll agree with that, but at least he does get his hands up in the passing lane. If he's not going to get there, he does bat the ball down.
All right, a couple others. You got some D's here. Aguilar, Murray. Huff got a C. He caught, they didn't go back to Huff, and I'm not the biggest Huff guy, but at least he showed a little bit of something on that play. He created something there. But Kelly, let me get your thoughts on, first off, Kelly's game plan, and secondly, in the post game and today, he just sounds like a guy who doesn't want to deal with the fact that his team is failing.
Yeah, I'll tell you, he's interesting to read in these post game, and then again today, he's definitely under attack. I mean, the media is coming at him. Is this team still behind you? Do you feel you still have these players? I mean, there's some hard questions, and he's shrugging them off and he's answering them, and I still have these guys, but does he really? And I think that's the question. And what I'm sensing is that he's maybe starting to ask that question of himself. And this is a team he put together. I mean, when you look at Chip Kelly's grades, a lot of it is based on the whole big picture. He put this team together. Now he can't really get his finger on it and get it turned around. What you said about kind of blaming the defense, when you're right, it's the offense that for the most part in every game this season, except for the last one, is why you could say they lost the game. And it's really hard for me to see him pointing fingers at people when it seems like, as much as we got tired of hearing Andy Reid say, this one's on me, it was my fault, the blame starts here. It's almost like it'd be refreshing if Chip would just say that one time.
Well, Scott,
and own it.
He's got F's 2 weeks in a row from you. So, and you're I'm not saying you're the easiest grader in the world, but for him to get F's 2 weeks in a row, that speaks volumes.
Absolutely. To me, it's the locker room. I don't feel he has control over it, in my opinion. I don't think, and he needs to set out and get these guys to get leadership. From the players' standpoint, somebody needs to hold a players-only meeting. They need to have their come-to-Jesus moment today or tomorrow before this game on Thursday and get this thing straightened out themselves, whether or not they want to blame the coach. And as you've been talking about as Chip the GM, I mean, he put this team together. He tried to create this certain culture. What culture is it? I don't think you can define what culture there is at this point on this team. It's a losing one right now.
I tried to get that to trend yesterday. It didn't work. All right, Scott Grayson has full Grayson's grades right now at 97.3 ESPN.com. Thanks, Scott.
All right, thanks a lot, Mike.